Robert gets ready for a shift at the big box home improvement store, where he's chummy with the crew, especially Ralph, a pal he's helping get in shape for a security guard test just a week away. The catch, though, is whether Ralph can ditch his chip habit. After his shift, Robert catches the bus home, buried in a book to unwind, then rustles up dinner and scrubs dishes, timing it all like a square. Late at night, he's in bed reading. But on a whim, he throws on a jacket, slips a tea bag into a tissue for a portable tea setup, grabs his book, and heads to a diner that swears it's open 24/7. Sure enough, the diner's door swings wide, keeping its round-the-clock vow, and this cat settles into a chair.
Fuck you.
A server pours hot water for his tissue-wrapped tea bag. Meanwhile, a young gal at the counter fends off loud hoots from some a-holes. The young gal kicks off the chat, picking up right where she and Robert left off last time. After a spell, Terry decides to split, but they both signal their small talk might keep rolling another night. The next day, young cats at the store corner Robert, curious about his past, but he dodges straight answers with a far-out dance show. That night, Terry shows up in a darker mood, chats briefly with Robert about his book, and he breaks down the ending and what the fish really means. Not the happy ending she hopes for, nor a pointless drag. Terry's plainly more rattled tonight, her nerves frayed as a ride outside calls for her attention, and the cat pestering her phone cares not a whit for her client choices. So, she steadies herself and heads out, while Robert watches, stuck like a square dad with his tongue tied tight. At least, Robert still has some pull over Ralph's choices, keeping on as he coaches his pal through a weight loss grind to nab that security guard gig. With a heap of motivation and his trusty timer, Robert nudges Ralph to stick with the task at hand and get it done. Back at the Bridge Diner, Robert rouses the gal with a sweet treat, just the sugary kind she digs. This time, her wig and face carry more flash, red streaks on her topper and a purple bruise where other girls sport fancy blush. She starts to join Robert at his table, hesitates, but settles in after he assures her it's all cool with him. Once seated, the gal decides it's time they get chummy on a first-name basis. She spins a tale, claiming she's Terry, while he offers a half-truth, saying he's Bob, not Robert, which fits his cool cat vibe much better. In the same beat, she fesses up that she's really Alina, for real. But the see-through vibe stops cold when Robert mentions her bruise. She hesitates, still keeping their back and forth alive, sliding him her demo. Singer at heart, though the day job's rougher if Robert's paying attention. He doesn't preach or pry, just answers her questions about being single, letting her read him the same way he reads his books. Talking books, she gets him to admit his wife was the one who lit that fire. Her goal was 100, and he's sitting at 91. The chatter runs smoother, and the buzz of her phone is the last thing she wants, so she kills the sound.
91 books, though.
Before long, the two of them are out on the dark bridge, Robert slipping into a pitch about his latest read, after admitting he suffers insomnia. He's been solid company, but the bad kind rolls up in a car and wrecks the night. Slavy, the boss, slaps Alina for crossing lines with a client, like the client hadn't crossed them first, and for daring to dodge his calls. Robert clocks the driver packing a pistol while Slavy slips him a card, pitching him as a customer who deserves better stock than fiery Alina. Robert takes the card, smiles, and watches them drive off with his diner pal. Next time Robert's in his usual booth with a book, the counter's empty, no sign of poor Alina. Another night rolls by, and Jake the bartender spills she's laid up in the ICU, worked over bad. So he shows up and peeks past a curtain. Jake hadn't stretched the truth. One eye's swollen shut, her face pinched tight with pain. A woman sits close, tending to her, and neither of them notices the bookish visitor standing there. Robert's hanging out in the reception when Mandy rolls in, all teary and shook up, fumbling to hold steady for a cup of coffee. So, Robert steps up with some tissues to lend a hand.
Alina, how's she doing?
When he asks about the gal Alina, Mandy pulls back, real cagey, but he swears he's just a chum. After a bit, she spills that Slavy's the reason Alina's beat up bad, catching heat for pushing back. She's always had that rebel streak, but Slavy's warned he'll silence her singing pipes next time. He's already roughed up one gal to prove to the others he's no square talker, all action. Back home, he stares first at the business card from the Barbarian, then at the demo from Sweet Alina. He burns through a good stretch of time just turning it all over in his head. Their talks, Mandy's stories, until the weight of it sits on him like a bad migraine. Slavy rolls into his lair and settles into his office, flipping the switch to work mode. Nobody figures Robert would just stroll in uninvited, but Slavy holds his temper, for now. Robert lays it out plain, asking for Alina, but Slavy plays it light, cracking wise, though the vibe gets heavy when Robert slaps down $9,800 in cash for her freedom.
I'll give you $9,800.
Slavy's crew, packing heat, stands guard while the boss and this intruder rap. In the end, Slavy calls it straight. The cash only covers 1 month, not Alina's whole life, and if Robert's sore about it, Slavy's got a few more tricks up his sleeve to put the cat in his place for stepping out of line. Robert grabs the cash and figures to split, but he can't quite make it to the door. Instead, he bolts it shut and scopes out the room, eyeing their mugs, counting Slavy's crew, checking tattoos and hardware. Then he sets his trusty timer, mumbling 16 seconds, and struts back in with a tougher, deadlier vibe. The first cat packing a piece catches a swift hit to the jaw before Robert twists his gun hand. The weapon whistles around at Slavy's throat, the wellspring of all that mouth. Robert jams a shot glass into his attacker's eye, then switches to a knife to drop 2 more. Another goon smashes a bottle for a jagged edge, but Robert had clocked a corkscrew earlier. He trades up, driving it into the man's gut, then his throat, still murmuring the count. When it's over, the counter shows he's a few seconds late, but he just shrugs, treating it like he only overran a cardio session. The goons are laid out in paradise, but Slavy's still gasping, bleeding through. Robert's math says he won't be far behind, so he spells out Alina as the reason the boss is dying on a sticky floor, ignoring the trafficker's curiosity about what kind of badass he's dealing with. Afterward, he washes off at the sink, curls into bed, and sleeps like a baby. Work hums along until Ralph strolls in with a can of Pringles. Robert's ready to chew him out over the chip habit, but the can's empty. A note tucked inside. Ralph grins. He's made the weight cut, confident he'll ace the test and snag the job. They fist bump, and when Ralph spots a bruise and asks, Robert just borrows a line from Alina. Something stupid. Headlines report the deaths, but nothing pins Robert. Rumors blame rival gangs, and that's enough for him to switch off the tube. Teddy shows up at the still bloody murder scene, finds no leads, and orders his crew to widen the scan, reminding a hesitant crook hop that he's Pushkin's muscle. Robert tracks down Ralph at his mom's shop, pitching in after a fire. Ralph's down, but Robert's help lifts the mood. Meanwhile, Teddy storms Irish turf to confront a cocky mob lieutenant. Guns drawn, tempers flare, but Teddy lays down his piece and Masters drops Little John's crew before they blink. Masters is shook, but Teddy doesn't care as his message lands loud and clear. Meanwhile, Robert's playing the steady pal for Ralph, lending some comfort as his buddy sorts through his troubles. Ralph's trying to make his peace with the fire at his mom's shop, seeing it as a timely break that saved his hide from bombing the security guard test. Teddy and Mandy take a ride, and he's still fishing for answers on Slavy's demise. When he floats Alina as the common thread, Mandy plays dumb, but the look he shoots says he's not buying it. Back in his lair, Pushkin hears Teddy's report. Associates check out clean, which only means a specialist's at work. Teddy vows to find the stranger, and Pushkin makes his demand plain. When they do, the punishment should be loud enough that no one ever tries a stunt like this again. At Ralph's mom's joint, 2 lowlifes chase off the rest of the customers and lean on the lady for their payoff, crowing they'll swing back next week for more grief. As they head out, Robert pipes up, saying he's got to report a crime since these fellas are cops, but they brush him off, telling him to make it 911's hassle. Robert, though, has one of their numbers and dials up to throw a verbal jab. So they slam on the brakes, pile out of their ride, and demand to know how he got their digits, stunned when they see he's holding a single piece of evidence that paints them in a bad light. They get antsy, one patting him down for a piece while the other warns him about running his mouth. Robert demands the cash back and roughs them up good to show he's no square. He could plug them with the pistol. But instead, he keeps them breathing, needing them alive to cough up the extorted dough, or else their video hits the streets. Thankfully, they listen, and Ralph gets his life back, job included. Robert just watches, quiet, carrying the look of a proud dad. Mandy gets antsy when her tale doesn't jive with what the other gals are saying. Before Teddy puts the squeeze on her for spinning a yarn to begin with, she spills that she saw a fella, a black man with no name, at the hospital. Terry's been gone since, and Mandy hasn't a clue where her friend's taken off to. On the brighter side, Ralph steps out in his fresh uniform, test passed, and tips a salute Robert's way. Teddy is getting closer, cameras caught Robert stepping into the restaurant, but he never stepped out. Speak of the devil. It's just another day at the store when Robert notices a cashier being robbed. The man's got a gun, quiet but firm, asking for the register cash and the ring on her finger. Robert's the one who hands over the bills. The woman's too rattled. But his eyes are already on the thief, breaking down his stance, size, and the chance he's carrying more steel. Then a kid walks in with his mom, and Robert lets the man leave with the cash and the ring. The rough stuff can wait outside. If Robert's plan was to attack out in the cool breeze, it's too late now as the clueless crook hops in his ride and peels out fast. The cops roll up and get to work, doing their thing. Funny enough, Robert tells his pal Ralph to cool it, saying it's just dough, but still picks up a hammer from the store like he's grabbing an apple for a quick break. Teddy's got plenty now, clear snaps of Robert hanging around the area, while Robert's still playing hero. Next shift, the cashier shows up and spots her ring waiting in the register. Not far off, Robert's giving a hammer a once-over, wiping it clean so it's neat and ready to be back on display. He's home alone when something tugs his focus. Timer set, door cracked, and there's Teddy, playing detective. Robert's not fooled as he's got the answers, and Teddy's just circling, trying to rattle him. He slides out Mandy's photo like a trump card, but Robert doesn't blink. She's gone. Teddy calls it a fall down the stairs. Conversation stalls, and Teddy turns to leave, but Robert fires back with questions of his own, pressing to know how the Russian tracked him down. That's when Teddy hints he's got folks in his corner, but doesn't bite at Robert's probe about who we is. Back in his ride, Ted owns that he might have just met someone more screwed up. They keep tabs as he struts in for supplies, clearly scheming. Teddy isn't buying the government records, claiming he's just a regular guy, and he wants more information. Robert rolls up at the diner and hustles Jake out with an order. Now it's just him and another guy, pretending to be a handyman. Robert calls him out, and the man stands, handy with a gun. All right. Teddy and his cop sidekick are posted outside, ready for a show until a truck rolls in, blocking their view. Inside, Robert narrows his eyes, does the calculation stare, then strikes first with his book, knocking the gun from the attacker's grip. A round fires, splashing blood, and Robert slams the guy's head into a table, kills his windpipe before cutting the electricity. Masters wants to react, but Teddy's not having witnesses. The truck rolls off, and the damn walking calculator strolls out, snapping pics with his phone. Nobody knows what he's up to, but it's time for Teddy's goons to fan out and catch that specimen alive. Robert stays one step ahead while the others are out sniffing around, but Teddy catches sight of blood, a sure sign this fella taken a hit. Slipping out from the shadows, Teddy clocks a guy cold, spots his police badge, snags his phone, and vanishes quick. Meanwhile, the crooked cops roll up to Robert's pad, where he's stirring a pot of honey on the stove. In the bathroom, he's patching up a bullet wound while they jimmy the lock. They finally bust into the joint and hear water running from the bathroom, but when they check, it's a slick trick. Robert's holed up in another apartment, his place wired tight so he can keep tabs on the intruders. Clues start pointing that he's on the lam, but Teddy's playing chess, not checkers. He knows Robert's running Big Brother right now. All he wants is to track the guy down, no matter the cost. Robert leaves town, finds some old timers he's friends with, and they welcome him to dine with. Susan knows his visit has an underlying tone, so she reminds him she's retired and only consults here and there. Still, he brings out the photo he took of Teddy, wanting to know who the pest is. Later, the husband and Robert sit over a game of chess. Small talk slips out that Robert's officially dead on paper, gone in a car bomb. Now he's a ghost, supposedly starting fresh. Indoors, Susan's got the full intel, everything pointing to Teddy, aka Nikolai, ex-military, empathy-free. He's Pushkin's enforcer, and Robert just shook an entire turf, taking out Slavy and his goons. 2 cops on Nikolai's payroll are dead, Masters is missing, and Nikolai won't quit until he finds Robert. When Susan asks why Teddy protected Alina, it's more rhetorical. She knows him inside and out. It's just who he is, the part that never changed, even after his wife died. He doesn't ask outright, but she lets him be the man she knows. Masters is still standing, done answering to Teddy. Holed up in a hideout, he jumps at every shadow and blaring alarm, shirt on, gun in hand, scoping for intruders. Heading to the garage to silence the haywire car alarm, the sprinklers kick on. He's too distracted to notice Robert pop up, slamming his head into the edge of the car door and making him drop his piece. Dazed, the man swings and misses, leaving Robert on a fence, shoving him back into the vehicle. Just as he tries to stir, Robert cuffs him to the steering wheel. With control of the keys, Robert rolls up the windows and fires up the car. The hose hooked to the exhaust starts pumping carbon monoxide, pressing Masters to choke. He's got a recorder, and now all Masters has to do is spill everything about his boss, or literally choke on the truth. On the second round, Masters is still playing tough, so Robert winds up for a third, then a fourth before stepping out of the garage entirely, leaving the cop banging and screaming for him to come back.
I'll be back.
No! Wait! Wait!
Now, guided by Masters, he heads to someone called Andre. The place is a slaughterhouse, but deep inside it's a hub for money laundering. With Masters in tow, no one questions him until they reach Andre. Masters warns they need to pack up. The location's compromised. Andre doesn't flinch, even after hearing the Pushkin connection. So, Robert lures him closer with a mock interest in the gun. The man steps up, aiming to intimidate, but the weapon's flipped back and his goons swarm. Though Robert knows it only takes one call for the tension to vanish. That joint's now kaput, with no trace of Andre or his crew. Just this fella Masters cuffed to a door while Robert spreads some serious dough around to Pushkin's workers, then gives them the boot from their gigs. Right after, he leans on Masters to ring up the cops, then presses hard to know the crooked cops' getaway scheme. Masters tries to dodge, claiming there's nothing to spill and the heat'll nab him before jail can, but as far as Robert's concerned, there's still a shot to square things up and do what's right. While Robert's rifling through the goods in Masters' safe, snagging a drive and a passport, the BPD rolls up to the joint with stacks of cash stashed behind and Andre and his crew all tied up. Meanwhile, words trickled back to Teddy that Robert's gone missing and a new player enters the scene, betting his men will track him down. When Pushkin dials in, Teddy ignores the call. Soon enough, Robert slides into that new hotshot's empty spot, toting bloodied glasses as a keepsake. He lays it out straight, warning he can keep the heat on if Teddy's up for it, ready to put on a real show. But it can all wrap up nice. Robert says, if the big shot oligarch shuts down his deal set for tonight, no haggling allowed. Teddy and Robert settle in for a real heart-to-heart. Robert's done his homework, knows, just as this fella Teddy claims, that he's got no heartstrings to pull. After all, Teddy iced his foster folks who never laid a harsh hand on him, just because he didn't want a curveball. Didn't want them ditching him down the line. Teddy tosses back that Robert's the flip side, a real soft touch. Robert doesn't shy away from it, but he ain't no pushover neither. Slavy could have split with a cool $9,800, and now Teddy's got a shot to walk away clean or face the music. Back at his hideout, Robert hooks up the drive and hits a motherload of dirt, fingering a slew of crooked lawmen. He rings Agent Mosley, tipping him off to an email he just fired off. Once the intel's out, Robert starts sniffing for Pushkin's big D-Day, and it's all laid out on the drive. In the dead of night, he torches the oligarch's oil tankers, leaving the place a blaze of fire and smoke. Pushkin's riled. Teddy feels the heat. Time to dig deeper. He rounds up a new crew and snapshots of Robert with Ralph. The right-hand man hits the horn, lays down a hard ultimatum. On the line, Ralph spills how many of their crew got heaters to their heads. Teddy gives 30 minutes for the mark to show. Robert hops a bus while Teddy, cool as ice, eyeballs the tracker and tells his boys their target's closing in fast. The word's out for a sniper to plug this fella Robert. But as the bus rolls in close, it's a ghost ride. Nobody's aboard. That's when Teddy barks orders to ice one of the workers, and it's about to go down when a tune starts blaring from inside the joint. Ralph gets pulled by one of the crew to kill the noise, and he points the goon to the security office where the PA system's set up. While Ralph's left cooling his heels in a corner, the goon flips off the music, but he catches a whiff of movement and goes on high alert. Robert's timing is sharp as a tack, not giving the guy a chance to swing, snapping his neck clean with just a few quick licks. Then he hauls the stiff inside and shuts the door tight. Another goon gets lured out, and Ralph plays bait, drawing the fella's eye so Robert can swing in and clock him cold with a fire extinguisher. Then Robert tells Ralph to do his bit, guard the crew using the service doors. Teddy's still in the game with a few boys, one sent to hunt the hostages. It's hide and seek, and Robert loves playing in the dark, so he kills the lights and locks the automatic doors tight, like he's keeping it square. But he ain't playing fair, rigging a booby trap that snares one unlucky sap in a rope. Choking and bleeding while Robert watches coolly. The next guy spots his pal dangling, and Robert spears him through the neck quick. Teddy opens fire as Robert tries grabbing a piece off the fresh stiff, forcing him to duck back, but not before catching a single slug. Rob's tucked behind a shelf, firing up a doorknob with a blowtorch to cauterize the slug in his chest. The fire's rigged for his own trap, but two gunmen wise up and dodge it, only for one to back right into a hand drill this fella Robert's got waiting. The next goon's a big bruiser, blasting the office where Robert's holed up, catching Teddy's eye. Robert steps out, jams a glass shard into the guy's shoulder, and holds the upper hand, sticking him a few times. But soon, Robert's on the deck, wrestling to keep a bloodied shard from turning him into toast. A knife's within reach though, and Robert's quick, snatching it and sinking it into the bruiser's neck. Ralph comes back for his pal, but as they make their grand escape, it's open fire and Ralph gets shot. Still, they take cover and Robert hands over his timer for Ralph to work with. Teddy tails Ralph, but Ralph beats him into a secured storeroom, triggering an explosion that downs one gunman. The door jams, leaving Teddy and Robert in a fast-draw face-off. Robert closes in, fires 4 rounds, crippling the sociopath, and finishes with a precise shot to Teddy's throat. A grim signature move at this point. 3 days later, Robert hits Moscow for the head of the snake. Just as Pushkin thinks he can negotiate, Robert vanishes. No gunfire, just electrocution when the water from the sink bowl overflows. The heavy work outside with the guards is already done. Now, the calm after the storm. Alina catches up with Robert, a changed young woman with a new story. An envelope with money was left for her at the hospital, telling her to get out of town. Now she's back, thankful to Robert, hoping to see him around. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, and you also might enjoy watching these. Thanks.